Gold Aussie dollar tops all-time high. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Ainslie Insights, brought to you by Ainslie Bullion, Ainslie Crypto, and the Gold and Silver Standard. Today, welcome back, Sam, for the first time in 2025 to discuss all things gold and markets. Happy New Year, first of all, Sam, and how are you going?
Great. It looks like it's going to be a wild year.
It certainly started off that way. We're not that far in, and so much has happened already. Been a whirlwind, particularly over the last probably 3 days since we've had the inauguration, we've had the lead up to that. So much has been going on. But let's just start off with gold, all the way back up there again. It actually gapped higher. What was behind all that?
Well, one of the things behind that was, well, firstly, looking at AUD, the Australian dollar has not been doing too well, but specifically with gold, there was a bit of a surprise. So there was a bit of whiplash happening with outlets talking about, do we have a new Trump? Is he not going to put in these tariffs? Because it was looking, around the time of the inauguration, like he wasn't just going to jump forward and put a bunch of tariffs on everybody. And then he's actually come out and he's announced, hey, let's do it next week. So he wants to put around 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. So there's been a big shift in the narrative, and that's kind of a warning sign for Australia as well that we may be kind of caught in the middle of some of this tariff chaos.
It's such an interesting concept because there were so many people talking about that in the lead up, saying that really they were any article that came out or anything that was presented that said he wasn't going to do that, Trump wasn't very happy with, and they were arguing that it was all just smoke and mirrors, it was all just negotiating tactics. But what you're sort of saying there is that it wasn't just that, he's talking about actually implementing this stuff, which kind of catches
Exactly.
the market off guard because they weren't really believing what he was saying. Do you think this is just a double down tactic? Do you think that ultimately he is going to follow through on that, or is it still negotiating tactics? What's your sort of view on what he might be thinking around that?
Well, that's the key phrase there, negotiating tactics. That's probably the only reason someone would have to believe he would be doing, saying something and then not doing it. Another term I've heard a lot is bark versus bite.
Mm.
Is he all bark and then he's not actually going to do it? He's just trying to do the art of the deal. But this is the same guy who was just in not too long ago. And people talk about, is this a changed Trump? Is he calmed down? Well, he didn't go from being a teenager to, being in his 30s. I mean, he's still an old ornery businessman, essentially. What's going to change in a handful of years? And then you have articles coming out like the Washington Post came out and just published before the inauguration that Trump's going to be very gentle with tariffs, and he's just wording it very strongly. He's not actually going to do it, and don't expect too many tariffs. And Trump replied to that directly. Where did you get this? I didn't say that. Who are these anonymous sources? You're just making this news up. Of course, the Washington Post, interestingly enough, is Jeff Bezos's newspaper, which he acquired in, was it 2013 or 2014? I can't remember, but and then who was in the front row at Trump's inauguration? Jeff Bezos,
Well,
which is interesting.
that was very interesting because it was a all-star lineup of really all the big money in America at that inauguration, wasn't it? Like there were some big names sitting there, and that I think that was quite confronting when you're watching it to go, wow, okay, there's whether they're bending the knee or whether they're I don't know. I don't know how to interpret that. What's your take?
Well, with the Facebook and Amazon, the head of the Washington Post there, I definitely see that as a bending of the knee.
Yeah.
I definitely see, because business just has to play ball with who's in charge. And look, they may have just been doing that before. As
Mm.
Zuckerberg recently said, they would get these phone calls of people just screaming at him, telling him what they have to do. And you're just basically some kid, and you have the intelligence agencies yelling at you. That would be pretty intimidating. Um, but as far as the bark versus bite thing, I don't see how that could be misconstrued so badly because I mean, he he said he's going to sign up to nearly 100 executive orders on his first day. Is that really easygoing? Is monetizing your inauguration on a Solana meme coin, is that taking it easy? I don't think there have been any warning signs that Trump's going to be taking anything easy. And as a lot of people said during when he was at his desk signing all the executive orders, a lot of people were saying things such as, dad's back home and he's not happy, or he's trying to reverse everything in the next 30 minutes. That's happened the last 4 years. So definitely not pulling any punches.
And it would take a while for the markets to absorb all of that. I mean, I don't think anyone could be on top of what even all those 100 were. And when you think about the implications that flow on through, but obviously the one that we're going to be spending the most time thinking about personally is the Aussie dollar. And you mentioned that at the
Yeah.
start, the impact there is hit some levels that we haven't seen since really we had the crash around the COVID era. Is this the end of that? Is the worst over? Because it potentially is at a point where you could see the US dollar turn. I know some of the analysis I've been looking at has been saying if you compare it to the start of the last Trump presidency, very similar situation where we came in with a strong US dollar, and that was effectively the turning point. Do you see that this time could be different simply on the back of Trump not being prepared now for what he's coming in with, and maybe even using the strong US dollar as a negotiating tactic? I mean, all of that together could actually paint us into a bit of a corner.
It is interesting to look at what happened last time with the US dollar. And I think, look, there could be a similar pattern there. The only other thing, though, is relations have kind of heated up with China. There's more drama now about, things like TikTok, AI. Now that's an issue. Processors, all these sorts of things have just kind of gotten worse. And during the Biden administration, it's been kind of in the shadows. They did a lot of surgical economic strikes against China. It wasn't big, sort of boastful, overt actions, but it was kind of this under the table surgical striking of trying to keep China from, taking over things like AI and being number one. But what we did learn from the last Trump administration was when he did come out with these big tariff announcements, which were kind of a surprise. People just woke up, analysts woke up, looked at their computer. Of course, these are happening during different times. The Asian session traders, and then, US and London. But people are turning on their computers and getting a slap in the face and seeing huge tariff announcements, and then you'd see the Aussie dollar and the ASX just tank. And that was kind of a surprise at the time, but now people are more on top of that correlation between the Australian dollar, which last time I checked, last year was the fourth most traded currency pair in the world. You don't think analysts are going to be looking at the factors that affect that? And you can see that already when Trump came out and he was being more aggressive on, talking about tariffs and things. The Aussie dollar kind of struggled.
And
So if he comes out and he starts, he's done with Canada and Mexico, some tough talk on China could be the next leg down for us potentially.
yeah, and that's the point I'm wondering about. I'm a little bit worried about as well, that it's not necessarily, people might be interpreting that as Trump coming after Australia. I don't necessarily think that would be the case. It would be more the flow on impact of a strong policy response against China. And that's what you're saying there, isn't it?
Of course. And then the other thing that happened last time was China was scared to retaliate against Trump. They actually, Trump would do something to them and they wouldn't really be able to do anything back, or they would be scared to heat the issue up even more, heat up the confrontation. So they just go after Australia. And it was very clear. It happened immediately. Okay, no more Australian wine. Okay, an entire shipment of iron ore is going to arrive at our dock after this, arduous journey, and we're just going to not let them dock and not say why, and they have to turn around and go back to Australia. Little things like this. which could just, I mean, we're just kind of the punching bag in the middle sometimes, sadly to say. So if he's going to be tough on China, we can expect more potential negatives.
Look, we said it was going to be interesting. It started off that way already. We've got 4 years to look forward to of potential volatility. Even if we can pick the direction on some of this stuff, it's not going to be a straight line. It's going to be volatile along the way because there'll be lots of twists and turns. But if nothing else, we're going to have plenty of content to talk about for the next 4 years.
100%.
Look, thank you so much for your work on that today, Sam, for that deep dive. Really appreciate that. Thanks for coming back on board. We look forward to seeing more of you as the year progresses. And we will chat again soon. So thank you.
Thanks, Chris. See you later.
Thanks, everyone, for watching. We'll be back very shortly.